another episode of the Lady Trucking CEO podcast. And once again, we have another amazing guest here with you, Dr. Coleen Simmons. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me today.
Awesome. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, everybody. My name is Dr. Coleen Simmons. I'm the owner of S.2 LLC. It's a coaching program where I coach logistics professionals to scale up, level up, and help take their business to the next level. I also have a trucking company, and so I know the challenges of having this passion to start the business. You finally get the business, you finally get the insurance, you finally get the trucks, and all the ups and downs and everything in between. And so, because I had so many issues starting my business, I thought, you know what, it'd be great if I could provide a resource, a go-to for people like me who don't know where to get financing, don't know how to apply for grants, hiring and screening and drivers. These are just the nuts and bolts of running a successful business. And so my trucking business birthed as Coleen LLC. And so here we are today.
That's amazing. How many years have you been in trucking so far?
So it's been about 4 years in trucking, and Ask Coleen just celebrated 1 year in January. So
oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
The trucking business isn't a startup anymore, but Ask Coleen is still a startup.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of growth and a lot of excitement.
So how is the transition from starting a trucking company into going into the more coaching side of it?
So I still have the trucking business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a professor. So I've been teaching since 2013. So that's like what, 20 years off and on.
Wow.
On my bio, I talk about me merging my love of logistics and being a professor and merging, because when you're coaching, you're teaching, you're encouraging, you're uplifting, sometimes psychologists, right?
Yes.
Things. And so it was just a really easy transition because I have been a professor and, being a small part of my students' journey in getting that bachelor's, that master's, that doctorate degree.
What subject do you teach?
So when I was teaching I taught mostly online. I taught marketing and management courses.
Oh, nice. Marketing is definitely something that trucking companies and logistic companies would actually need help with. That's amazing. So when it comes to the trucking business, so you've been a professor for a while, right? What made you decide to start a trucking company?
So I am an entrepreneur at heart. I've been running a business since I'm 25. And so I was running a business and being a professor and being a single mom. And I've started like about 7 businesses in the last 25 years. So they all kind of were going on at the same time. So I was teaching, I was running my business, and I was thinking of the next opportunity. And so what happened is a friend of mine was in trucking, and he was like, Coleen, you should get into this business. And I'm like, you're wicked. All the things I have going on, you want to add something else to my plate? So it wasn't my original idea. And then, of course, he planted the idea. And I said, So being the professor, I'm researching like, okay, and I'm learning about this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And, there's not a lot of women, let alone Black women in trucking.
Okay.
Like, I could do this.
Mm-hmm.
But before I started, I said, if I'm going to do this, I want to know all aspects. So I want to have my license. So I applied for my CDL permit, got the permit, and then I started CDL school about 2 months later and spent the whole summer in a CDL school with the teacher yelling at me.
Oh my goodness.
I was the weakest link in that class.
Oh my goodness.
All other students, they were men, of course. I was the only female. Older men, and they had chauffeur license, they had a background in trucking, and I had zero. So I was coming in, I was holding the rear. And the whole summer he yelled at me, the whole summer. And I'm here in Atlanta, it's hot, it's 95 degrees, and I'm trying to learn these maneuvers. And I didn't know how to drive a stick shift. I learned to drive a stick shift on a tractor trailer with and so it was a very stressful experience. And at one point, I don't know if it was my husband or a friend said, Coleen, you're going to quit? I said, first of all, I'm paid my money, bought my book. I'm in this for the and then yelling at me for 2 months. I'm going to have a CDL to show. And so I proceeded. And the irony of the whole thing was when we went to test, I had to test twice, but I was the only one that passed the pre-trip. When we tested, everybody else failed at the pre-trip.
Wow.
So although I didn't pass the first time, I was really proud that I passed the pre-trip. So much so I wrote the pre-trip for the teacher because he had it all over the place. Again, the teacher had
Professor.
all, and I'm like, we need to go from one part of the truck, air brakes, the trailer, the tractor, the engine in a harmonious
Systematic way. Yeah.
I rewrote it for him. And at the end, when I tested and passed, he asked me for it and I just gave it to him. So,
Wow.
but the long story short is, you know what? It's not how you start. It's how you finish because I literally was the weakest link. I did not know how to drive a stick shift. I did not know how to drive a truck, let alone a tractor trailer. And in the end, of the four of us, only two of us got our license. And the same two that had all this experience still have their licenses to today.
They still don't have their license?
You have to pass after 2 attempts. When you go to a CDL school, they'll take you out twice. After the second attempt, if you want to go back out, you have to find someone with a tractor trailer. They may have in the last 4 years, but in my class, only two of us.
Hey, you were one of them.
Weakest link was. And so I like to share that story for that person that's listening that thinks, I can't do this. Have this, I can spare it. And you may not get it in the first attempt, but you'll get there. You just gotta
be absolutely. Yeah. I feel like we can accomplish anything, any dream that we've been given, any idea that seems so far out of our reach. I believe that we can accomplish it if we don't give up. Like that right there is the key. We cannot give up. We have to be persistent and consistent. And if we get knocked down, keep trying. And if we get discouraged, yelled at, and all the other things that you've just been through, as long as you don't give up, just don't quit, just keep going and you will succeed. So you got your CDL and then you decided to start your own trucking company, or so what happened there?
So my brain works. I already knew I was going to start a trucking business. I just got the CDL for the knowledge.
Okay. Wow.
And so I literally got my CDL license August, because in July and I didn't pass. I got to the maneuvers and then I had to retest. In August, September 6th, I incorporated my trucking business. October, I bought my first dump truck. December, I bought the second dump truck. And between January and September, I bought 3 more box trucks. So in a year, I bought 2 dump trucks and 3 box trucks.
Wow.
Incorporating the business.
So I know that starting a new company, funding is always an issue. So how did you manage to get from 1 dump truck to 2, then to 3 box trucks in such a short space of time?
You know what? You're so right, Camille. And so that's the main reason why I started at Coleen, because we can have all these ideas and aspirations, but at the end of the day, you need money, right? And so while I was in school, I was working on my credit, to be honest. When I finally did get the CDL, I did have a good credit score. So I do want to be transparent. That helped a great deal with me getting the funding as quickly as I did. I had a good credit score.
Okay.
But I worked at it because I already knew, even before I decided to get the CDL, I was going to start a business, and I've started several businesses. So I knew my credit was going to be important as the owner. And so when I started the business, my score was in the mid 700s. And the first truck, I took money out of my savings. I used my savings for the deposit, but I quickly learned when I looked at my savings, I missed my money. Where's my money at? Oh, it's in the truck. I quickly learned, you know what, Coleen, if you want to grow this into a fleet, this is not sustainable. You got to come up with another plan. And so then I realized, you know what, you got to work, see where you are, and separate yourself from the business and see can the business stand on its own. So the second truck, I got financing for the second truck, which is the second truck. So I learned after the first truck that I my savings, right? And I know somebody listening, well, at least you have savings. Yeah, and I was grateful because that's started. Um,
Yeah.
so after the second truck, then it was time to get the box truck. Because I realized the dump truck business is very much so based upon the weather.
Mm-hmm.
You don't learn this in CDL school, right? And so there were days where the truck wasn't working because it was raining and the clients canceled the loads. My driver's looking at me, okay, what's going on? And it became very, very stressful. So I kept the dump trucks. I said, I need to get something that I can run 7 days a week, rain, sleet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because I had such a bad experience with that teacher, I'll admit I was intimidated about that tractor trailer. So I knew I didn't want to get a tractor trailer,
Okay.
manage a box truck. And so for me, again, I'm very intentional. I wanted to buy trucks that I was willing and able to drive.
Mm.
In that my driver parked my truck at the side of the road or he or she broke down, I could jump in and maneuver. I was
Exactly.
confident in that tractor trailer because it was such a stressful experience, but I was comfortable in a box truck. So that was why I kind of stayed in that dump truck, box truck lane.
Mm.
I bought the third truck. I knew I said I got this. I had the provider recommended a lender. I knew my credit was strong, and surprisingly, um, they wanted to know if I had a CDL. And
Oh,
so I didn't know at the time, but me having a CDL played a critical part also in me getting so many trucks because the lenders that the dealer was using wanted me to show proof that I had a CDL.
wow.
So I don't know if I would have moved as quickly. I'm not saying you need
Mm.
CDL, but
Right.
it definitely helped the conversation because they want to know too, hey, if your driver can drive or quit or whatever, can you jump in and drive? And the answer would have been
Exactly.
yes. So the
Mm.
CDL has helped, not only knowledge, but helping me get funding. And
Mm.
then it was just by the fourth truck I had established, I had payment history, I've been paying on time, I had a story to tell. So trucks 4 and 5 was,
Chewing. Just
yeah,
so how was it? What was it like finding drivers for these trucks?
a nightmare. That's why that's one of my classes, hiring and screening drivers. I'm ashamed to tell you, my first year, I went through 25 drivers and
Wow.
I didn't even realize it was that many drivers until January when it was time to mail out the W-2s and my payroll company sent them to me. I was like, oh my God, I had 25 drivers. I didn't even know. Um,
Wow.
and so January is always an introspective month. I have to look at, okay, Colleen, what role did you play in this? Because you obviously wasn't doing something right. Um, and so I had to tweak for the next year of, okay, what am I going to do differently? And one of the biggest mistakes I made was I didn't ask the right questions. I was just happy to get a
Mm.
driver to put them in the truck. And then a month or two later, they realized they don't want to be over the road. They want to be home with their families.
Right.
I should have said, are you okay with being away 3, 4 weeks at a time? And they would have said no, and I wouldn't have hired them. So a lot of it
Mm.
was asking the right questions, listening to what's not being said, and being more intentional with who I put in my truck.
Mm. What would you say were the top three questions that you need to ask a driver before you like in that process?
So for the dump truck, the person has to be an independent thinker. Like, don't need to be micromanaged because it's basically you and the dump truck. So I'm gonna, I always ask, what's your management style? Do you need someone to call you every day and handhold you, or you just get in the truck and you own it? Uh,
Mm.
the box truck, okay, they're going all over the country. Are you okay with being away 3, 4 weeks at a time
Mm.
in a hotel, 3, 4 weeks at a time? Uh,
Wow.
so it just depends on what they were doing. But the biggest thing was, what are their goals?
Right.
I hired a guy, and after I hired him, he goes, "Oh, I'm looking to buy my own dump truck." And I'm like, "Well, why did you take the job?" "Oh, you don't know." So I asked, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in the next 6 months, 12 months? And surprisingly, a lot of them will say, "I'm looking to buy a truck." So I knew, I wish you all the best, but I knew that I don't need to bring you on and spend money on background check and drug screen only for you to stay 3 to 4 months at that. So it was just
Right.
asking the right questions, making sure you have the right fit.
Yeah, that's so important. I don't think that that is something that a lot of business owners actually think about. we just kind of get in and like, okay, how many years you been driving? Like those kind of questions, any accidents, but like really digging deep into what the driver's goals are, that would give a whole different perspective and a different trajectory of like, is this going to work or not? You mentioned earlier that you were juggling a lot of things. You started several businesses, you're a mom, you're like, how did you manage or balance all family and business and being a professor, all of these things all at once?
God. I've always and I think, it's a cliche, if you're doing something that you love, it's not a job. And it sounds cliche, but it's really true. I love teaching. I love being a professor. I love when I saw the light bulb goes off in the student's head and they got whatever it is I was trying to teach. And so it didn't feel like a job. It was, oh, I'm doing something I love, and by the way, I get paid to do this. And
Mm,
so that's, I think, how I was able to do it all, because it wasn't a job for me. It wasn't laborious. It's something I enjoyed doing. I was good at it. And I learned, let me see, when I was 23, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. When you're growing up, I'm from the Caribbean, and so you're taught to be a good girl, go to school, go to college, get a job.
mm,
But when I got that job, I realized, man, is this what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life? And by the time I was 23, I realized, you know what, this is not for me.
mm.
So I took a leap. I was in sales. I had a really good year. I paid off all my debt. I didn't even tell my mother. I quit my good job. I told her after the fact. And she goes, pick me, beg back for your job. I said, Mommy, in America, when you quit your job, you can't go back
Ain't
and
no
get
begging back.
right. And so I haven't looked back since.
Mm,
And so I think for me, it was just always, I knew that being an entrepreneur and creating businesses and pouring into people was my journey. And
mm,
that was my purpose. And so, yeah, that's how I juggled being mom. I'm married now, but at the time I was a single mom,
mm-hmm.
you know, juggling businesses, being a professor. It was just all fun.
It was
It
all
was
fun.
all fun. Yeah.
Wow. You had a good support system in place then. Like, because if you had to be at work or if you had to, be out with something with the truck or whatever, like what
So
happened?
the trucking business, I was in a relationship, so I had a good support system. But 20 something years ago, I was single, so I didn't have my son until like 4 or 5 years in, and then
Mm-hmm.
me, my son, and hiring good babysitters.
Mm.
um,
Wow.
and then of course I later met my husband and definitely had more support. And even now I'm married and have two.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just make it work. But
Yeah.
you love what you do. It doesn't feel like work.
That's a beautiful thing.
Up at 4 a.m. because I had this idea. Ask my friend, it's a running joke. She sends texts at 2, 3 in the morning. It's like a running joke, like, because I have an idea and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh God, I should probably wait till business hours, but I send the text at crazy hours. But yeah. So it doesn't, it's just fun.
Yeah. You said you're from the Caribbean. I'm from the Caribbean too. I'm Jamaican. Where you from?
I'm from Antigua.
Antigua. Oh, so it's a very similar, like, when it comes to like the when it comes to the approach and working and getting a good solid paying job, you know. Um, but in that sales job, was it something that happened that made you decide, oh, this ain't for me, or was it just an unsettled feeling?
Something happened. I was excited to have a sales job. It was an awesome job. I won't name the company. I learned a whole lot. A lot of the things I learned there I still use in my business. But I learned that people are bad minded,
Mm.
and to my experience was to grow, you have to backstab and lie and cheat and
Oh,
steal.
Jesus.
I saw a lot of women in their 50s, 60s, no kids, no husband, married to the job. And I made a decision right then and there. That's not going to be my story. But what did it for me was this one particular year, my last year, I had an awesome year. I made President's Club. My manager asked me to bring some of my sales for the next year into December to help him his numbers. I did. I
Mm.
I didn't need to sell anything else. I had already met my quota. I was going to President's Club. I was just coasting. He asked me to, talk to some of my customers and move the sale up, if you will, to help his team numbers. And the January, I didn't have a good January because I moved and he wrote me up for non-performance. And so that started, I was angry. That started the brain churning.
So hold on. Wait. Let me get this straight. He asked you in December to have some of your clients, like to move some of your clients, your sales clients over to his team. You
Well,
did.
I was on his team, but say somebody else in the team didn't make their numbers, I'm making up the numbers for the collective of the team so that his sales team ends the year good. And so I did. And then in January, I didn't make a lot of sales because of what I did. And he wrote me up rather than say, you know what, Coleen, look out for me. I'm going to give her a pass. He wrote me up for non-performance. And it was the best thing he did for me because that is where the idea, I never, ever, ever thought of being a business owner until that day. And then I remembered 2 years earlier, this lady came to my house and charged me $275 for an appraisal. And I was only for 2 months. Number. And I'm like, I'm going to go to appraisal school. I called her and she was very negative. She wasn't very encouraging, but I said, no, anything that's going to pay me $275 for 20 minutes, I want to see. I now know it takes more than that. That was, and I went to appraisal school.
Wow.
I was at that job. I went to appraisal school, got my appraiser license, found somebody to mentor me, train me, went to jobs faithfully every day. They didn't have no clue. On my lunch breaks, I'm pulling a measuring tape, just growing my business. And they did it again. The next year, they did something really shady. But this time, I had an awesome year. I had no debt, had paid off my car note, paid off all my credit cards. All I had was, I remember, my mortgage and utilities. And I could live off of like 4 or 5 appraisals a month, which I was excited. This time when they screwed me, I gave them 30 days notice.
30 days, they're lucky.
I don't believe in burning a bridge. So I gave them notice. I trained my replacement and I left. And that was in 2001, May 2001.
Oh, well, look at God. Just, wow.
If I did that, I would have probably still, maybe still working there or somewhere else.
Yeah.
But that was the trigger.
Yeah, I definitely think that we come to a place within ourselves where you come to yourself and you're like, no, I am worth more than this. I am better than this. And I just can't stay here enduring this kind of treatment. Like, it's just, wow, that reminds me of a situation. It's a similar situation because I'm a teacher, I'm a pre-K teacher at heart. I was in an early childhood classroom and something, what the director, so there, how in an early childhood setting, it was a daycare. So like there was my director and then she has her director. And her director came into my classroom and was talking a whole bunch of stuff that she didn't even know what she was talking about. And my director was pretty new. And they called me into a meeting that evening. Mind you, it's 3-year-olds. So like, it's but so much you could do with them. But my classroom had all the work up and everything. Long story short, it was this whole big meeting between the 3 of us. My director, who I felt should have defended me, or at least, like, no, I know Camille's work. I've been observing her for the past however much. She said nothing. She just said nothing. She sat there and she just looked at me like, I was so upset. I called my husband that day. I said, babe, I don't know about this. I said, I don't know about this. This doesn't make any sense. He was like, well, he was in full support. So I said, well, I'm not going back. And I you good, because baby, I wasn't giving them no notice. They got no notice from me, but so when it comes to building relationships, because I know that building relationships in this industry is extremely important. And we're all at different places when it comes to that, right? So what would you say, like, what's your sauce? Like, how do you cultivate the relationships that are necessary in both of the businesses that you're in?
On the trucking side, it's all about relationships. And especially when you were like me with a new CDL license, no experience, new trucking business, new authority. Everything is new. All you got is you're it.
Mm-hmm.
So after I bought the dump truck and got that going, I got the box truck. So now it's a new animal because now you're going over the road. I knew nothing about dispatching, so I hired a dispatcher. And I quickly learned, nothing against dispatchers, those that are listening, that this person has me and 10 other people. So whether she gets me a load or not, she's good. And so I found the dispatcher that I had low goals. Like she felt like, because I had a box truck, she said you should make 3,000 a month. 3,000 a week, 3,500 a week. And I'm like, I believe these trucks could be 5,000 to 6,000 a week. So, but I believe in learning, and so I hired, I kept her, and I learned. I learned the lanes, and every time we did a load, I would call that broker and say, hey, Camille just, delivered a load to you guys from Atlanta to Texas. And, how was everything? And they was, oh, yeah, she delivered on time. And I was saying, I just wanted to kind of introduce myself to you. So the next time you have anything available, you could just give me a call or shoot me an email. I did that every delivery. And then, so now what happens is when I saw that broker on the load board, I would say, hey, Camille, I see you got a load on that load board or whatever. Who do you think they're going to give the load to? Some random stranger or Coleen who just delivered an on-time load?
Yes.
And so I just did that repeatedly. And so I would email, I would engage, I would just build a relationship because I realized I'm the underdog.
Mm-hmm.
Holding up the rear. I have no experience. I know nothing about trucking. I have no trucking relationships. And so I did what I knew best.
Yes.
But in sales, remember, you have to be good with developing relationships if you want to make a sale. So again, all life experience I poured into the business. And so, so quickly I realized, okay, I know the lanes now. Now the first time we went out, because I had an assistant, we went from it was bad. We went from Atlanta to Nebraska. Bad. It was bad. But
in a box truck, girl. In a box truck.
He didn't make no money. Oh, baby, my drivers was going to Washington State and back, okay? Because when you tell me you can't, you can't get out of you go to South Dakota, you can't get out. I went to all the states that, fleet owner is, let's say you can't, South Dakota got out, North Dakota got out, Nevada got out, Washington State got out. I just wanted to see, can I do it?
Right.
So once I learned the lanes, obviously I didn't do those loads often.
Mm-hmm.
Once I learned the money lane, I was like, it's time to let her go. And I let her go, and I started dispatching those trucks to myself, and those trucks made 5,000 to 6,000 a week in a box truck.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to make as much as a tractor trailer, obviously, but I literally almost doubled what I was paying somebody 10%.
Right.
Now I brought the 10% back into my business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Doubled my weekly revenue.
And then you have a whole lot more knowledge base on the lanes and on what it actually takes and all of that.
And I was building more relationships. Not that they weren't, but they had 10 owners. And I mean, I was booking loads on a Sunday at 7:00 if it popped up on my email. Because again, now they're emailing me now because I built that relationship. And they go, we got a load. Can you take it? Yeah, I can take it. And I made it work. Working on Saturdays and Sundays because they're pretty much working Monday to Friday. Holler at you 8:00 Monday morning. At least mine was like that. And I was like, okay, my driver is in Miami and Saturday. When are we going to get him out? We can't wait till Monday. We need to have a plan. And and I'm happy for that experience because now I can teach other people about it. Yeah.
So what was growing up like for you?
Well, you're from the Caribbean, so you're ready.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York, just down from the Brooklyn Museum. And so, when you're from the Caribbean, people are in and out of your house visiting. You're providing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You're taking them downtown Brooklyn. You're taking them all over the city. It was, growing up in Brooklyn in the 80s was a fun time. It was a fun time. I have a lot of fond memories growing up on the block. And then was it ninth grade? We moved to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Miami was nice, but it wasn't New York.
Right.
No,
So how old were you when you came to this country?
I was 7.
Okay.
Yeah, Brooklyn when I was 7, and then we moved from New York when I was 14. I did 10th grade in Miami, and then I went to Florida State. And so, Florida is nice, but it's not New York. And
Mm.
I'm here in Georgia. Fell in love with Atlanta my second year in college. Got lost downtown Atlanta, and I said, "That's where I'm gonna live." So I graduated in December and moved in January, literally a month graduation, and I've been
Wow.
here. I've been here since '97.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Ugh, okay. So, so when you were like in elementary through like high school, what kind of stuff were you into?
So in elementary, typical kid growing up in Brooklyn, playing jump rope, going to the corner store, going to Coney Island, spending a lot of time with family. That was Brooklyn life. And then when I moved to Miami, it was similar. Church, school. When you're a girl in a Caribbean household, ain't no a whole bunch of in and out visiting people. Not at least not in my.
First off, okay, we can't sleep over nobody's house. They can come here, but we ain't.
You got it.
What we're not going to do is send you over there and I don't know what's going on over there.
And it's so funny because I'm the exact same way.
Yeah, same.
And I have a 16-year-old son, and just today he wanted to go over somebody's house. I was like, I don't know those people, so you can't go. And he's a boy.
Yeah.
But it was simple times, but it was fun.
Mm,
Family, friends, good food. We'd go home every year or two to
nice.
go for carnival. So, my culture is a big part of me, and I'm grateful because a lot of times when people come from another country, they don't embark the culture, and I think it's sad when grandkids don't know about a village from where the grandfather came from or whatever. And so my
Yeah.
kids every year. I'm intentional about that.
Mm. Yeah, I remember the first time we took a family trip with our girls when they were older, when they were old enough to like, know what's going on and to appreciate it. And it was really it's really a great experience for them to see like, oh, this is where, so that they can at least also have some appreciation for where they are and where they're coming, where like, their family is coming from, so important.
Very important.
Yeah. What would you say has been the biggest challenge for you within the trucking space?
The biggest challenge, well, I could talk about the trucking space and coaching in the trucking.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The trucking space is being a female in a male dominant industry. I felt like I had to outthink, because they see this young Black girl. She don't know. When the truth is, I don't know anything about trucking at the time. And so you felt like people didn't take you seriously.
Mm.
Oh, I'm gonna show them. And show them. I had this I'm gonna show them attitude. And even if it killed me, I'm gonna show them. So I think just getting into a male dominant industry
Mm-hmm.
is like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And dealing with the fact that it's a small business, and in trucking, they look at how long you've had your authority.
Mm-hmm.
Really got to wait like 90 days to 6 months before you can really say, okay, I kind of, meanwhile, you're still paying insurance. There was a time I
Yes.
paid 10,000 a month on insurance, and
How
that's
much
10,000.
a month?
Yes, when I started, remember I had no experience and I had
Jesus.
no license, new CDL. Yeah. Now it wasn't until like after the first year, I was networking, I was in some groups, and somebody dropped the name of a guy. I called the guy and he saved me half. But even still, I'm paying 5,000 a month, for 5 trucks. They're not all running. Guess what? You still gotta pay the insurance,
Exactly.
note. You still gotta pay parking. Your driver's looking at me like, what's up? Or if you have a driver, whether you have a driver or not, the bills are coming. And
Mhm.
so just making sure you have enough money or access to the money to keep the business going is a challenge. Again, that's another.
Yeah.
And so you really have to have a plan on, okay, what am I going to do if I don't have a driver? How do I manage the bills? Because you need the truck to drive to keep the money
The
coming in.
wheels got to be turning in order to be earning.
Right. And so, yeah, I had 5 trucks, but there are months where all 5 trucks weren't running.
Oh, Jesus.
So, and you still have the truck note, the truck insurance, the parking,
How do
all of
you handle that? Seems like a lot. That sounds like a lot of, that sounds really stressful.
but that's the day in the life of a fleet owner, isn't it? That's the day
Yes.
in the life of a fleet owner. And so when people say, I want to get in the trucking, and it would kill me when they say a side hustle in trucking. There's nothing side hustle about trucking. You are all in.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're not driving, as long as that driver is on the road, you are accountable for everything he or she does.
Yes.
No
Yep.
side hustle for those of you that's, believing the hype, there is nothing side hustling about trucking. It's either
So
you're in
true.
or you're out. There's no,
Mhm.
you got to be all in. You got to be all in for sure.
That's so true.
But it's a lot. It's a lot. But it's rewarding though. But it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Control.
Definitely a lot to manage. And then be able to have like a large scale view, like of how the moving parts actually work together, is something that is helpful. What would you say the biggest success has been for you? Like where you're just like, yes, this is why I do this. This is why I'm doing this.
Still here. The average business opens and shuts in 18 months, right? And why they open and close in 18 months? Lack of funding. So the
Mm,
fact that, 4 years in the trucking business and ask Coleen as a year and change in business, I'm just proud to just be here
mm,
because a lot of businesses aren't. A lot of businesses started when I started and they're not in business anymore for whatever reason.
mm,
And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for all the lessons I've learned along my journey. Now I can embark that in my upcoming coaching because everything I'm saying, and I know it's hard when you're online and you're meeting people and people just be lying.
mm,
Everything I'm saying is the truth. I have no reason to lie. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
Whether you buy from me today or tomorrow, I'm good, right? So
mm,
I'm 100% telling this is what happened to me. Here's how I overcame it. Here's how I won these grants. Here's how I got the funding. Here's how I kept staying. Because
yeah.
it's enough to make you go crazy.
If you let it, you can't let it, don't let it.
You have to really be all in. This has to be something you really want to do, not kind of want to do. You really want to do it. But those
Mm,
days when the driver says, I'm not coming to work today," or or here's one that happened to me. The driver picked up a load in El Paso, Texas. He gets to Indianapolis. He's like 4,000 pounds overweight. DOT has your truck parked on the side of the road. This happened to me, and I had to find a warehouse company with the ability to come take the 4,000 pounds off and store it so he can continue on his delivery. Okay,
oh my goodness.
the driver, wait a minute, you didn't stop at the weigh scale, buddy? No, he just trusted that what they said on the order was correct.
Oh my goodness.
And so
No.
those are the days.
Oh, child.
They wasn't his fault initially. They did lie, but at the end of the day, you're the driver.
Yeah, you gotta, especially if you think that it might be, or something doesn't seem too
Wait,
right. Yeah.
weigh scales did you pass from Texas? I mean, and so so that's why when I see on TikTok or Instagram, oh, you want to sign up to get into trucking, I'm like, please don't listen to that. That's not true.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely all encompassing. There's so many opportunities in trucking, but it is not for the weak or the faint of heart. Like you have to be determined to make it work. What kind of mindset did you have to cultivate on a daily basis, or do you have to cultivate on a daily basis, like to just keep going?
You just have to have this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this no matter what happened. And that's just my personality. So that
Mm,
it wasn't even a conversation I'm already here. I don't spend money out of my savings, right? Enjoy this man yelling at me for 2 months. And I never forget this man yelling at me. I'm like, I'm already here now. Can't go back. Go
It's like
back.
what? Mm,
I'm here. And so, okay, how do I move forward? You have
yeah.
something, you shake it off. Self-care is important. I believe in going to the spas and getting treatment when you need,
Hmm.
and then regroup and say, okay, this happened. And the biggest thing for me is, when you make a mistake, learn from it, own it, but don't do it again.
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
So after that driver did that, guess what I do? I said if every time you take a load, the first weigh station you pass, get on the scale. I don't care if we're late, a little bit late, get on the scale. I learned, right? It was my job.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's my business. So although he was the driver, it's my DOT, it's my authority.
Yes.
Okay, every single time when you pass the first weigh station you pass, get on the scale. So
Yep.
that way, better prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting how like in in trucking, things are just unexpected. Like things just come up, isn't it? And then it's not a matter of if it will happen, it's a matter of when it will happen. And so like really putting the moving parts in place to for it, like the contingency is like, okay, so if this happens, this is what we're gonna do. Oh, that happened, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get on that scale every time you leave. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
where do you see your um coaching business and trucking business like in the next 5 years?
Well, I'm shifting the trucking business as of the summer. I'm going to go a different direction in trucking,
Mm-hmm.
or not as hands-on, but more of, like turnkey
Mm-hmm.
direction where, someone else finds a driver, finds a load, and I just manage. But at least the person is all in because it's their truck. They're paying for the insurance. I'm not having to deal with having a driver mindset. It's an owner operator mindset.
Right, that's different. Mm-hmm.
It's
Owner operators drive different from company drivers.
exactly. So hopefully by the summer, I'm gonna start turnkey trucking. I'm gonna start with one truck and then hopefully grow it from there. So that's where I see myself. I see myself having a fleet in that I always wanted to have the fleet. Like I had the five, but it was very stressful.
Mm,
I feel like I can accomplish 5, 10, 15 trucks with less of the headache in the way I'm going to be going starting the summer of 2020.
mm, okay.
As far as Ask Coleen, in a year, I've actually automated the business. So last year I was doing only live classes, which was great, but it was limiting because if you weren't available Sunday at whatever time, you might not purchase. So December, Christmas weekend, I went to a hotel. I call it a workation. I went in a hotel. I had my suits and my light,
Mm-hmm.
and I recorded all my classes in a weekend. I wrote 3 ebooks in a weekend. And
Wow.
now when you go to Ask Coleen, you can download the classes. You can download I didn't have ebooks. I created the ebooks to go with the classes. Um, I've automated the business. So that way, if you want to watch the class at 1 a.m. on a Friday night, well, I'm not available. It's still,
It's available to you.
yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah, and so in 5 years, I just see me just changing people's lives, helping small business owners, logistics owners get the funding they need, teach them how to apply for grants, help them to not make the mistake I made with attrition with drivers. I lost a lot of money my first year because I didn't know, and I didn't
Yeah.
have the processes in place in hiring and screening drivers. That is, to me, one after getting the funding, the hiring and screening drivers is like number two because if you have the
Mm.
funding and nobody to drive the truck,
You still stuck?
so stuck. So yeah, so I'm excited.
Wow, that's awesome. This has been really cool to just like hear um how many experiences led up to where you are now, right? And then transitioning from running the trucking company so hands on into now coaching others just based on the past experiences that you've had is so valuable because then I don't have to go through what you went through because of the knowledge that you gained and are now pouring out into into us, and that's really amazing work that you're doing. And it's so needed in this industry because it's really cool for another woman that looks like me to see another woman that looks like me, like teaching and training and like, oh, okay, this is really cool, and there's a certain level of comfortability, I think, knowing that you can, I don't know, somehow for me, it's like you kind of trust the person a little bit more because it's someone that you're more familiar with, even because you have some commonalities. You know what I mean?
There's so much you don't have to say
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like, yeah.
I didn't even have to finish because you already understood. You understood the struggle.
Yes.
So yeah, totally. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can people reach out to you and get in touch with you, sign up for your courses if they want to tap in with you?
So thank you so much again. Thank you so much again, Camille, for having me
This
today.
has been amazing.
This has been a great little chat. So again, you can go to www.askcoleen.com. Actually, I have a live second quarter workshop where I'm actually going to be teaching the 3 classes. So basically, the classes that you can get online. I really that one-on-one engagement with the students. I'm probably going to be doing a live, all like 3-hour workshop. You can sign up. You can send me an email. My email is info@askcoleen.com. If you're on TikTok or Instagram, my handle is askcoleen101. And on Facebook, it's just Ask Coleen. So I'm pretty much everywhere. Would love to see you in the building. I'm going to be talking about how to apply for grants, but actually that Saturday, I'm going to walk you through an actual grant. Sending you the questions in advance. And again, I'm all hands-on. We're going to walk through question 1, question 2, question 50. And if not submit, at least get you ready to submit a grant. I'm going to give you a couple of upcoming grants. This is the time of the year where there's a lot of grants. I just applied for 4 grants this week. A lot of grants coming up in April and May. A lot of people say, well, I want to be a grant, get a grant writer. You can do this yourself. If I can do it.
Okay. Because it's something, are there a lot of grants out there for trucking companies? Is it trucking specific or is it more for like women owned or minority owned?
Yeah, it's not trucking specific. And I'm always searching. Like today I found a grant for startups. So I'm going to be talking about that in my next slide. So there's startup grants. There's a lot of minority grants. There's a lot of, and because I'm a female, a lot of my grants are female centric because I'm a female.
Right.
So there's grants for minorities, there's startup grants. So it's not trucking specific, but it's our people specific.
Okay. And that's important because we be needing, yeah. Okay. So we're about to wrap up. Can you leave a last word for our audience who is listening?
Yeah. If I could leave you with this thought is, if you can think it, you can do it. Right. And it's not that idea, that dream wasn't just planted there by accident. It was planted there for a reason. So believe in yourself. And along the journey, there's going to be a lot of people that don't support you. Do it anyway. Right? And just know that idea was birthed in you for a reason. There's someone out there that need whatever it is you want to teach or sell or whatever it is. Just believe in yourself. And my favorite scripture is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ.
Amen, sis. We couldn't end it any better than that.
So much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Coleen, for your time and for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your experiences with us. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Lady Trucking CEO podcast, and we will see you guys next time.